The votes are in. Wednesdays, our live Q&As are going to be at 4 o'clock all off season long. Of course, that's 4 o'clock Lambeau time. So thank you to those who voted. And it starts this Wednesday, 4 o'clock live Q&A. Be there. Now, let's get started with the news of the day. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I'm your host, John Delray. Today, I'm going to take you through the coaching changes that have occurred over the last couple of days. And it's not just on the defensive side of the ball. There's actually been some movement on the offensive side as well. We're going to talk about it. Then also going through the Packers free agents and whether the Packers should buy, meaning bring them on back, sell, let them go, or let the market decide like the Green Bay Packers love to do. Let a different team decide whether that Packer should remain a Packer and maybe what they should get paid. So let's start off with the coaching changes that have occurred, starting with the one on the offensive side of the ball. Sean Mannion has been hired or added to the Green Bay Packers coaching staff. Now, Mannion is an NFL quarterback. As recently as this last season, he played for the Minnesota Vikings. And he's a guy, while not necessarily being noteworthy in the box score, has been revered for a long time as highly cerebral, very intellectual, has a great understanding of the game. Several of his previous coaches have talked about how he's got a future in coaching. So the Green Bay Packers decided to end his playing career and bring him in to the coaching fold. And it's kind of in conjunction with another piece of noteworthy news, and that is quarterback coach, 70-year-old quarterback guru, Tom Clements is coming back. That's as confirmed by several beat reporters now. He is coming back for the 2024 season, putting off retirement again in order to continue to work with the Green Bay Packers. Now, to me, this seems like the perfect marriage of a few things. You have Tom Clements, who is so widely credited with helping to make Aaron Rodgers, and then also the guy who's worked with Jordan Love the last couple seasons to help elevate his game. He's going to be coming back to continue to work with Jordan, continue to work with Sean Clifford. But then you bring in this younger coaching type who's got a little bit of NFL play experience, revered as what could be a great coach in his own right. And now you're going to essentially have him protege under Tom Clements for you. I love the addition of Mannion. Over the moon, happy about the fact that Tom Clements is coming back. This is big news for the passing game on the offensive side of the ball. Now, on the defensive side, there was some rampant speculation put out by the reporter of ESPN who actually announced the hiring of Jeff Hafley. He said he's speculating that while all the defensive assistants are still under contract, I would think many of them are going to stick around. Well, that's just not true, because since then, the Packers have allowed a lot of their defensive assistants to go interview elsewhere, which is generally like a pretty good sign that they may be moving on. Well, now we at least know some things. Jerry Montgomery, been the defensive line coach and the run game coordinator. Actually been in Green Bay since 2015. He is moving on. He's accepted a position with the New England Patriots to be their defensive line coach. However, a couple elevations are occurring. And I don't say elevations, but a few retainments, maybe one elevation, depending on what titles get handed out, for two current staff members. One, Jason Rebrovich. He's been the outside linebacker coach or the edge coach, as well as the pass rush specialist on the coaching staff. He is being retained. Just perhaps it still is yet to release what the real title is, but from the sounds of it, it looks like he's going to be the full-on D-line coach now, with perhaps maybe still the pass rush specialist thing into. What we can say is, generally speaking, it stands to reason that when you've got a guy who was an edge coach, who also has some experience in previous stops as being a D-line coach, and now there's rumors about you perhaps switching from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and you take the guy who was your edge coach and you make him your D-line coach, that it does sound as though a switch to 4-3 is at least coming, or perhaps just going with a lot heavier of nickel with a 4-2-5 approach, which of course is like the modern day base anyway, like we've talked about before. Regardless, you get what I'm getting at here. Jason Rebrovich, the edge coach previously, now sounds like he's going to be moving to being the full D-line coach with more hands in the dirt. Also being retained, Ryan Downard. Ryan Downard has done a lot of pass game work for the Packers in the last couple of years. He's been their DB coach. Sounds as though he is returning as well. In terms of one other individual moving on, Justin Hood, the defensive quality control coach, is going to be moving on to Atlanta. That reported by Paul Brettel. Who we are still awaiting the fate of would be inside linebacker coach Kirk Olivadotti, and then cornerback / pass game coordinator Greg Williams, as well as any other potential additions, other moves that Jeff Hafley may want to make. The other thing the Packers have yet to fill would be their strength and condition coordinator, ever since releasing Chris Gizzy out of his contract not too long ago. So lots of moving parts yet. Offensively, sounds like things are pretty well secure. They just wanted to add Sean Mannion into the mix. Defensively, Montgomery's gone, but they're hanging on to Rebrovich. They're hanging on to Downard. Everybody else, stay tuned. So let's take a look at all of these free agents. The Green Bay Packers, as of right now, have 17 pending free agents, and some are very, very simple calls. Others, it's going to take a lot of thought and perhaps the market really determining whether these players should remain Packers or not. So what I'm going to do is do a further explanation of 8 of these players while just kind of rattling off the remaining bunch, most of them much lower on the roster fringe types. And of course, going into this, there should be the understanding that there are 4 different free agency types, all of them present on the Packers. Okay, the first would be a void. Now, this player is an unrestricted free agent. Okay, a couple of them: Keyshawn Nixon, Darnell Savage, Yash. Those are the 3. They are an unrestricted free agent when free agency opens, but the Green Bay Packers are carrying dead money for them. Meaning that they've had a contract in the past with the Packers that the Packers have restructured, kicked a bunch of money into the future. Well, the Packers still got to pay that money. So these are guys who are going to be unrestricted free agents. They might be playing somewhere else, and they're still going to be on the Packers cap sheet. The Packers, if they opt to re-sign any one of these individuals, can then eliminate, switch around, push forward again, some of the dead cap charges that otherwise would be there. So I'm going to call those void free agents. Then you've got your classic unrestricted free agents. They can re-sign with the Packers until free agents officially begins in March. Then once midnight hits, they can go wherever they want, open season on them. All right. Then you've got your restricted free agents, guys who can be tendered contracts by the Packers at different value levels. And then if they're signed elsewhere, the Packers have the right to match, or they get draft pick compensation, such as a second-round tender, a right of first refusal tender. These are locked-in values the Packers would have to pay them. But then if they wind up signing elsewhere, the Packers get that draft pick back. That's a restricted free agent. Then you've got exclusive rights free agents. These are guys that have been in the league for under 3 years, generally have only played for one team in terms of regular season action, if that. But these are guys that can be tendered a minimum value contract, and they really can't go anywhere else or do anything else about it. So those are the easiest of the easy calls. Of course, you're probably just going to bring all those guys back. So let's dive in with our first player that we're going to explore, Yash Diamond. 28 years old, played 21% of the snaps for the Green Bay Packers this year. PFF graded him overall at 61.7 on the year. His free agency type is void with $2.5 million in dead cap on the books next year. So what should the Packers do with him? What do I think they're going to do? Sell. Because look, coming into the year, it really felt like, of course, David Bakhtiari, he's kind of fragile, but we're good. Rasheed Walker's this developmental project. Maybe you got Caleb Jones in there, but like Yash played great the year prior whenever Bakhtiari missed, held down starting jobs for stretches here or there, has turned in great performances against Nick Bosa as well as other premium pass rushers. At the very least, Yash is a gotta-have-it type to be our swing tackle. And then we get into the year. Bakhtiari gets hurt, which, yeah, they should be fairly used to. And then Rasheed Walker starts playing left tackle. Well, what happened to Yash? And then he just kind of stayed in this limbo for a while. And then Rasheed Walker's play went down a little bit. So they started doing this rotation with Rasheed and Yash. But Yash certainly didn't seem to be taking control of the job at all, right? And then you had that curious mid-season incident where Adam Stenavich was asked about Yash Nyman, and he basically said, yeah, he needs to practice better, he needs to play better, like had some harsh words before Matt LaFleur in his press conference the next day had to like walk it back and say that they're happy with Yash. It was baffling all year. They seemed to only want to give Yash playing time if it was in a rotation with Rasheed Walker. And then by the end of the year, that was basically evaporated into nothing because Rasheed Walker got better and better, and Yash just seemed to just stay. He certainly didn't take possession of any job this year. It really just truly feels like the Packers probably are going to address the tackle position in the draft. You've got the Bakhtiari question. You've got Caleb Jones, who's been developmental now for a couple of years. It really feels like this is the time to move on from Yash, and a change of scenery could very well be what he needs as well to go get right. Next up, let's talk Keyshawn Nixon. 27 years old, played 72% of the snaps for the Green Bay Packers this year. Of course, he doesn't just play corner. He's also their kick returner, 59.8 defensive grade from PFF, 63.4 special teams grade. He is a void free agent with $1.4 million dead cap coming this year, but then also smaller totals each of the following 3 seasons. And really, frankly, this is what I'm probably going to let the market decide. I know he's a dynamo returner. In some ways, he's revered as kind of like a clubhouse leader for the defense, right? He's always willing to stick his nose in. And he was a very good returner. Still one of the best returners in the league this year. But he wasn't as impactful as he was last year, partly because teams knew to kick around him this year. And I'm just going to throw this in too. There's a beautiful irony here for the Packers of like, they finally get one of the best kick returners in the league. And it just so happens to be in an era where the NFL is just trying to terminate the kickoff play at all. So it's just beautiful, right? But Keyshawn Nixon is a guy who, when playing as a cornerback, he has the occasionally great play, but overall was teetering on a below average nickel corner most of the time. And in today's league, especially moving forward into the future, that nickel corner is basically a starter. Look at that. I mean, he played 72% of the snaps this year. I would anticipate that could even go up next year. He allowed an 81% target percentage, a QB rating of 103 when targeted. He only broke up 4 passes, had 1 pick. As a tackler, he was inconsistent with a missed tackle percentage of 16%. Yes, he was absolutely willing to stick his nose into it. He just didn't always make the tackle. And the thing, I'm not at all upset if the Packers want to bring him back, but more so in the vein of being a returner and help at the corner position. And I'm not sure he's going to go for that. He was very vocal last offseason before the Packers re-signed him that he is a cornerback first and then a returner. The problem is, in terms of production, he is a returner first and then like an okay-ish corner. There's one possibility here, though, and this is really where the real question about Nixon comes in. It's been floated even in the comments here. Under the new defensive style, let's say they're 4-3 or 4-2-5, and they do employ their safeties in a traditional box safety versus center fielder type. Could Nixon be one of those? Yeah. I mean, he could. He could. He has the skill set to do it. Could he be upgraded upon at those spots? Yeah, they probably could get a more impactful player. But if they're looking to retain Nixon, maybe they believe he's a good match for one of those spots, depending on what their exact responsibilities are going to be, which, of course, we can't yet know. So here's the thing. Bring him back as a returner? Absolutely. I'm in. And then depth corner? Sure. Bring him back as an unquestioned starting cornerback again like you did this year? Yeah, no, I'm probably out on that. Bring him back in some other capacity in the secondary that we don't know what it's going to look like yet? Yeah, okay. I suppose you could sell me on it, but probably going to be upgradable for sure. Next player in our last void free agent would be Darnell Savage, 27 years old. Played 50% of snaps this year. While he did battle some injuries, did miss some time, certainly. PFF grade of 66.3 overall, as well as 72.8 in run defense. He is a void free agent, $4 million of dead cap this year, $4 million. Next year, 2.7. The year after that, 1.3. And the thing is, I personally would probably let the market decide. I think the Packers, though, and I know this is going to upset some of you, I do think the Packers are going to wind up bringing him back. And there's a few reasons. One, he's got the largest void numbers in terms of dead cap out there of the ones that they can bring back and then manipulate down the number. And per PFF's tracking, this was Savage's best season since Mike Patton left. That is encouraging. He also logged 14 stops, the second highest total of his career. And yes, his missed tackle rate is still too freaking high. We all know it. But if you go back and watch, when does he miss most of those tackles? In the wide open field. When he's up closer to the line, playing in a robber position, or potentially being a box safety in the future, or even the year prior when he was more of a nickel corner than he was as a true safety. His tackling numbers do get better the closer up to the line that he gets. It's not perfect, I know. I'm not openly campaigning for this. I'm just explaining it. But the other thing that I'll say here too is when Savage came back from his late season injury, all of a sudden, seemingly, the communication did improve on the back end of the defense, and the Packers were very complimentary of Savage, saying that he is a main cog in their communication. It just feels an awful lot like we're going to give him one more chance to see if he can do something under the new defensive coordinator. I personally would probably be fine with it if he's brought back in June or July, see if anybody else wants him, maybe bring him back as a number 3 safety. Not someone you're going to count on, but someone who could still be around, certainly. I don't know, though. I think the Packers are going to buy. Looking at a couple more free agents, our first unrestricted free agent, that would be 26-year-old running back A.J. Dillon. He played 45% of the snaps this year at a PFF grade of 75.7. And the thing is here, again, this is another let the market decide. And in large part because of this list right here. I know that's itty bitty if you're watching on YouTube, but yeah, it's a lengthy free agent list at the running back position. A.J. Dillon's not the only dude out there. Other notable names may include Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift, Zach Moss. You get the idea. Lots of free agents at the running back position, and that does nothing to speak of the draft. So, A.J. Dillon, we know what he is at this point. He is realistically a fairly plodding runner who does break open just at a kind of a low frequency. And he does get better as it gets colder. He just kind of missed that this year. And he is pretty good in pass pro. He's certainly a fan favorite. Certainly, by all accounts, good in the locker room. It's just from a production standpoint, he does feel pretty replaceable. And with that free agent list and the draft, it's a really, really far stretch to say that this is a lock to come back. I still think it's totally possible that he is retained on some kind of Jamal Williams style deal, like 2 years, $3 million a year, something to that effect, because then they just don't have to worry about the running back position. Because they do consider A.J. Dillon to be very, very assignment sure. And we know how important that is for LaFleur. We also know that LaFleur wants not just a lead running back and then a backup. He wants 3. That's been a priority of his all along. He wants 3 running backs. Maybe A.J. Dillon is still with Aaron Jones for 2/3 of that again, and then maybe a shift in a draft pick. I don't know. It's totally possible he's back. But that free agent list, paired with the draft, it is so far from a lock. Now, if we get into June or May, or just past the initial rush of free agency in the draft, and the draft just didn't work out for the Packers. They only get 1 running back. They were hoping for 2. The board didn't fall their way. And the free agency list has been fairly picked over, but AJ's still out there. Or just everyone knows that AJ wants to go back to Green Bay. And any of the other running backs are more expensive or whatever. Then, yeah, totally. 100%. 100% I could see him back. And chances are I'd be fine with it. I might even support it regardless. But the thing is, there's so many avenues to add other running backs. I'm not sure right now I can say absolutely unequivocally, yes, give him a roster spot. Because the ceiling of what could be is probably so much higher than what we've seen from Dillon over the past stretch of time. So for that, let the market decide. Next up, John Runyon Jr., 27 years old, played 84% of the snaps for the Green Bay Packers at right guard this year. PFF grade of 54.7. And another, you're going to notice a trend this year. Let the market decide. He was a steady starter for a couple of years there, but this year his play did pretty dramatically fall off. He got into more and more of a rotation with former third-round pick Sean Rhyan as the year progressed. he was a steady starter. That's the thing. And then this year, his play pretty dramatically fell off. And we just never got an explanation from the coaching staff as to why. Interior line is going to be a need in this draft, whether it be trying to upgrade over Josh Myers or just finding an actual backup center or giving new competition to Sean Ryan at right guard or even a starting upgrade over Sean Ryan at right guard. These are going to be needs in the draft. And John Runyon Jr., I gotta believe, given what he was the year prior, and his play did get better over the year, it still just didn't reach the peak that we had seen in the previous 2 years. I gotta believe someone's going to look at that because most teams are more O-line needy than the Packers, and they're going to offer him at least, maybe not big money, but at least a starting position, more so than he's got here in Green Bay as he's getting further and further into a rotation with the young guy behind him on the depth chart. So maybe he's back. If he is back, it's probably going to be on some kind of Lucas Patrick type deal of you can be back up on the interior and it's not a lot of money. But I got to believe someone's going to offer him something better. And it's going to be most likely that he leaves. Next up, safety, Rudy Ford. He's 30 years old. He played 51% of the snaps this year, a good chunk of them as a starter before eventually giving up that spot to both injury and Jonathan Owens. PFF grade was 69.9, including 72.9 in coverage. And the thing is, I'm a buy on Rudy Ford. I think I'm a buy on Rudy Ford a lot more than the Packers are. I bring him back. I like him a lot as a center fielder type safety. Maybe not starting. Maybe they're going to have some awesome rookie do that instead, or maybe they are going to spend in free agency at the safety position. But regardless, I like him as a center fielder in this new style of defense. He's got the speed. He's got the zone ability to do it. Plus, they originally signed him 2 years ago to be a flyer or gunner in the special teams room. And he's done less and less of that as he's played more and more safety. You can just have him do that because back in the day, he was one of the best in the league at doing that. And it really flew under the radar what some of his stats were this year. Just listen to this. He had 12 stops this year with a missed tackle percentage of only 8.1%. It's one of the highest rates on the team. Paired with only a 41% completion percentage when targeted and a quarterback rating of 30.1. Those numbers aren't even close to the rest of the team. They're that much better. And I know he was playing safety in Joe Barry's schemes. Like how much of that is truly valid? It still is dramatically better than any other safety on the team. Even if he's paired with another stud rookie, whatever. I want that dude on my defense. He was one of the steadiest tacklers. He's one of the fastest safeties on the team. He's one of the better ones in zone. And his completion percentage this year was terrific. I want that guy back as depth. I'm just not sure that the Packers do. Next one, another safety, Jonathan Owens, 28 years old, wound up playing 70% of the snaps this year, was very, he was able to endure, let's say that. He had a PFF grade of 61.9 on the year. And the thing is, to me, this is another let the market decide. One of the things about having your whole safety room on 1-year contracts is you got a lot of decisions to make at the end of the year. And I do think that this is a room that could get completely rebuilt. But now, probably more than ever, you're looking at the two safety spots as really different positions. A strong safety to play closer up to the line, box safety. A free safety to be a center fielder. And then you've got potentially the Viper linebacker as well as a nickel back as well. A lot of decisions there, a lot of holes to fill, a lot of revamping of the defense as well. And in the Packers' new defensive structure, it's more than likely than not that Jonathan Owens would be a box safety, where Darnell Savage could also potentially play, or maybe where they like Nixon. And Owens does offer a lot of special team skills since he basically took over for Dallin Levitt when he was released, so that should be talked about as well. Owens did do a pretty good job, exactly as advertised as he would be. He was a strong tackler and he struggled in coverage. His missed tackle percentage was only 9.2%, but he gave up a QB rating of 115. So if the Packers don't hang on to Savage, it makes it way more likely, in my opinion, that Jonathan Owens would return. If the Packers hang on to Savage, then I wouldn't necessarily hold my breath with Owens. But hey, again, with several of these guys, if you're in June and you're looking to shore up your roster and the draft didn't fall a certain way, you could do worse than bringing back a guy who did some good stuff for you this year. Now, as for everybody else, I'm just going to give a lot quicker of thoughts as to what's going on here. Let's lump them together, Tyler Davis or Josiah DeGuara. Ultimately, I think both of these tight ends leave, DeGuara just did not have the production, certainly didn't carve out himself a big-time role in the tight end room. And plus, we never really saw him play that fullback role that LaFleur always had envisioned. The Packers just didn't utilize it as much as realistically a lot of people thought that they would. So I think both of them wind up leaving. But the thing that I'm going to say too is Tyler Davis had such an important role in special teams before his injury. Bisaccia was so high on him. Bisaccia is always that high on having a tight end play on special teams. Yeah, it's possible, but the tight end room does feel awfully full. Corey Ballantyne, I'd bring him back. He's like a bottom of the roster type. He did some good work. He did better work than what his roster status would indicate. You could do a lot worse in a quarterback room that needs some reinforcements. Eric Wilson, inside linebacker. I'd still buy, especially now in a 4-3 setting where he actually has been a starter before, plus still one of the special teams leading tacklers this year. Bring him back. Christian Welch, another inside linebacker type. I'd let him go. That's just fine. Patrick Taylor, a restricted free agent running back. Packers are, I'm fairly confident, going to be moving on. But hey, if there's a bunch of injuries next year, they might bring him back. Robert Michelle, cornerback. I do believe they're going to be moving on from him as well, unless, of course, they need bottom of the roster fodder. And then you've got 3 guys who are exclusive rights free agents. These are guys who the Packers would be insane not to bring back in some way, but considering that it's just a minimum contract and no other team can really touch them. That's going to be Caleb Jones, tackle, Daniel Whelan, the Irishman, the punter, who was by most metrics a league average punter this year. So I would expect maybe some competition for him, but certainly isn't going anywhere. And then number 3 running back, Emmanuel Wilson, who the Packers may look to upgrade over, but ultimately they're keeping him around as a project for sure. So there you go. That is all the Packers free agents. Like I said in the opening, Wednesday, 4 o'clock, Lambeau time, here for a live Q&A. Please do join me. Let's hang out. Let's talk Packers. Let's enjoy the offseason together. Then on Friday, going to be talking salary cap, unless, of course, there's some breaking news that affects the calendar. But Friday, going to be talking salary cap, what kind of money the Packers have, what decisions they face, where could it go? All of those exciting things. So thanks so much for joining me here on Lombardi Time Brews. I do hope that you had a fantastic weekend. And as always, go Pack Go.